One of our good clients, Tony Van Dam, brought us one of the first Star Wars posters that was designed and signed by Howard Chaykin. Upon assessing the poster, I noticed that there was an incredible amount of foxing present throughout the paper, which really needed to be washed and bleached. The challenging part, though, is that the signature was done in ballpoint pen, and although those inks can be oil-based, which can make them water-resistant to a degree, we run a high risk of that signature smearing or fading. Seeing how incredibly faded the signature already is, we can't risk the signature fading even the slightest bit, or it will just be gone. So no pressure.
So my name is Tony Van Dam. I work at a company right now called Volunteers of America, which actually serves low-income children. But when I was younger, I lived in the San Fernando Valley, and I was lucky enough to get employed at this place called Fantasy Castle. I think I started there at 16. I was surrounded by comic books, which I loved, science fiction books, fantasy books, but they also, this was the really important thing, they had movie posters there. And if you know anything about movie posters, you can only see them at the movie theaters. And we had a few movie theaters around, but you could never touch them. You could never obtain them. They were supposed to go back to wherever they came from and be destroyed. So the idea that I could get a movie poster was really cool to me. And so when I had an extra change, I would purchase a movie poster from there.
In cases like this, I always like to meet with my colleagues to discuss treatment options and determine the best course of action. The signature is also tested at this time for water solubility, and it appears to be stable. However, I don't want to take any risks with this signature, and since we are not exactly sure how it's going to respond to the bleaching process, we decide to proceed with a suction table cleaning. This will allow us to control the amount of water that the piece is exposed to, and it will also allow us to isolate certain areas, making the process safer. I will still be keeping my eye on that signature during the entire process. Once the poster is cleaned and linen backed, we can perform any restoration requested by Tony.
As far as I understand, there was 1,000 produced because in 1976, Star Wars hadn't come out. Who knew whether it was going to be a hit or a flop or anything? No one knew anything about it. Had some crazy creatures and all that. So those posters that were at the San Diego Comic-Con in 1976 and at Americon, or I think they call it MidCon, they were selling them for $1.75 at the time. They couldn't sell them. So at the end of the conventions, they were giving them away. Star Wars is yet to be a blockbuster, and as huge as it was, that probably a lot of these posters may have ended up in the trash, stuck up on walls with sticky tack or whatever. So of the 1,000 that were produced, maybe less than 500 maybe still exist. It's hard to say. It's interesting because the artist they got for that, Howard Chaykin, he was also asked to do the comic book. So he was a comic book artist. So you have that comic book look to that initial poster. And some of the earlier posters do have more of an artistic feel to them because they got some artists. They were mainly using artists at that time. So they had like Howard Chaykin, who did the first poster, Tom Young, who did the Style A poster. For Empire, it's Roger Costell, who did the famous Jaws poster, so he was involved in that. They used a number of different Japanese artists. So I think the early trilogy stuff, with Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Revenge, I think they were more creative with the posters back then. The artists, if they're the early artists, such as Chaykin or Tom Young, I think there's a lot of value in those posters because of the artists. And I think the way I like to do it is get the artists where typical artists sign their artwork, which is in the bottom right. And so I like that kind of process of the artist has signed their artwork. even though it's a reproduction of their artwork, like a limited. But I think that's really cool. Knowing that may have come from an early San Diego Comic-Con or a Mid-Con, where he was like, oh yeah, I'll sign my nice, beautiful vintage signature on it. I think this one, and now we're like a few years out from being the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. So that piece, I think that specific piece should be preserved.
I'm so happy with how the poster turned out. The paper bleached really well, and the signature did not budge. I am so thrilled we were able to work on a piece of Star Wars movie poster history.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job on the border.
Thank you.
I can't see anything that looks, negative to what it was before. I mean, it almost looks like a brand new poster. So
Yeah,
that's impressive.
the foxing that was throughout bleached really, really nice, especially through the main image. It significantly lightened, so that also helps like the colors pop. So yeah, hey, I'm so glad.
Thank you very much.
Yes! Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're a fan of Star Wars, then check out this video where we linen back and restore a British quad.